Welcome to Let's Get Writing. I'm your host, Catherine Taylor. It's a pleasure to be here today. Let's Get Writing is all about the writing process, but sometimes it goes much deeper, and that is the case this week. My guest this week has been assisting Santa in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador for almost 40 years. He completes almost 50 visits annually, from parades to hospitals and seniors' homes to special events. He has had over 1,500 visits with Santa, and he is the only living Canadian Santa inducted into the International Santa Claus Hall of Fame. And he's also a Knight of St. Nicholas. So please join me in welcoming Bruce Templeton to the show, and I'm going to bring him up in the screen right now.
Merry Christmas. It is wonderful to be here.
Now that's a beautiful sound if ever I've heard it. Not everyone can do that. I guess you've had a bit of practice.
Just a little.
And has this year been a busy year for you, Bruce, as well? Same as usual, or have things slowed down with COVID?
No, they haven't slowed down at all. You learn the technology, so there have been many more Zoom calls. But no, it hasn't slowed down at all. If anything, it's increased.
Well, that's good. It worked well for me as well. So I'm able to reach people like you without having to leave central Newfoundland. And if everyone doesn't know, I do want to say that Bruce is in St. John's, and I'm here in Grand Falls, Windsor, and technology brings us together. Bruce, it's been a pleasure talking to you this week. And if people are not familiar with what you do, I wanted to go back a little bit. I know we are going to talk about your book, but I wanted to go back to how it all started. How did your role in bringing this joy to people begin?
Well, first of all, I had, in a prior career, my wife and I had moved all over Canada and in the U.S. We said, enough of this. We came home. And in 1978, an aunt of mine, they've named a building after her on Duckworth Street, Miss Anna Templeton. She was the director of crafts for the province, and she asked if I would play Santa at St. Andrew's Church. So I went off and I considered it. All I could find was cotton wool and flannelette, which I didn't like. I went back to Aunt Anna and said, "No, Aunt Anna, and you didn't say no to Miss Anna Templeton." Anna said, "If I make the suit, will you do it?" And that was the beginning of what showed up in my house was velvet and lamb's wool and brass and prescription glasses and leather gloves. And that was the beginning of my adventure with Santa.
And it's quite a suit. We can see your hat there, and I've many photographs of you. Actually, I do want to show this one because it's certainly beautiful. I have to find the right one here. Well, this shows you, here we go. I just want to put this one in the stream. This is you in all your glory.
There it is.
Yeah, absolutely an amazing suit. And I can just imagine when people encounter you, how they feel. So a lot goes into this, Bruce. I mean, we see Santas everywhere this time of year, but not Santas like you or Santas who've had your experience. Can you talk a bit about that? Why are the Santas in the Hall of Fame so different and so amazing?
Well, I can only describe the levels that personally I have gone through. So, and I describe this, I may or may not be right or wrong. I simply say there are level 1 Santas and you can hire them. And for many, many of my colleagues, it's a business. And it's $100 a visit or $200 a visit or so much an hour. And if that's what they want to do, well, that's okay. But that wasn't what I set out to do. First of all, I've been very fortunate. I did not need any income from it. Look, we have an elf barking in the background.
Oh, we do ever. The plow just came by. I'm going to mute me for a minute.
So what happened is that in the beginning, for maybe a year, I played Santa. And then you get to be so confident at this and so good at it that you lie on the floor and the kids climb all over your back and they pull on your hair. And you really start to believe this after a while. There we are at the children's rehab. Special place in my heart for the rehab kids and their parents. Many of these kids they didn't choose to have some of the afflictions, the diseases that they have, and they're very special parents that are with them. So you become very close and you become very drawn to these children and to these families. And then the really tough ones come, the ones where in the seniors' home they say, Santa, we need to go to such and such a room. Somebody's passing away. They'd like to see Santa before they die. The little baby that you're looking at on the screen, that baby passed away. So that took me into the third area, and I think that's where I am now. So I met St. Nicholas. There's Jacob. So there are many kids that Santa has seen. There's Nevea. There she is, the little lemonade girl. And Santa has seen many, many kids over the years, and I have been with many children that were not alive a year later. So it becomes, in the end, I'll be careful how I use the phrase, but it can become a ministry. And that's why I've written the 4 books now. I wanted to share with the public, share with the readers what it's like to be inside the world of Santa and St. Nicholas.
I'll unmute myself again because the peanut gallery there was having quite a time with the snowplow, but they settled down again. They like to make their appearance. And it's interesting as we come back to the fact that you wrote this book and In Search of St. Nicholas. So I think in that book, if which is available through Flanker Press, and in that book, you describe that journey of, your transition from just simply being Santa to of a lifelong commitment, really, to this role and the joy and the involvement. And but also as part of that book, you talk about many of the traditions that we take, for granted today, how they came about in a beautiful story. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about the book.
Well, first, in my head for years, I clearly have become, I don't know, very closely connected to all of the mythology, the myths, the stories that go back for years. So I wanted to trace the history. And I keep reminding children, Santa was in a class this morning at an elementary school here. When you read The Night Before Christmas and all through the house, Santa Claus is not in the book. When you think about he was lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. So I wanted to go back in time. So all I did was I started back and I took the Coca-Cola Santa, and then I went back and described Silent Night was first sung when the organ broke down in a little town, and the organist said we had to cancel the singing. And a woman looked up at the stars on Christmas Eve, and she said, you can't cancel the church service. It's such a silent night. It's such a holy night. So they got a guitar, and they went into the little church. And that was the first time Silent Night was ever sung. So then I wanted to go back. St. Nicholas was a little boy, 342 AD. He died. His parents died when he was 12. They left him a very wealthy boy, and he went to live then in a monastery. He felt very badly that he had all this money, so he went out one night. He walked down the street. He saw 3 girls whose mother had died. Their stockings were hanging by the fire. They were drying, and Nicholas put his hand in his pocket and he put gold coins in their stockings. So Nicholas went on to be the Bishop of Myra. And for those people who are interested in it, the Nicene Creed, the Council of Nicaea, the decision as to when Easter was going to be, the whole idea of the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, Nicholas was part of all of those decisions.
And that wasn't your first book either. I think we should let people know you've written 3 books prior to this one.
Yeah, the first one I wrote was called The Man in the Red Suit. And that was the beginning of my adventure. And one of the chapters in there that I enjoyed writing the most, and I think about it even now, is there's a picture in there of my wife Paula and her mother and my daughter. So what that's all about is they're making cookies. And this morning, when at the elementary school, the children said, "And Santa, what's your favorite kind of cookie?" And I'm very hesitant to tell them the the cookie that Santa likes the most is the one that you make with your mommy and your daddy and your granny and your grampy. Because I can just imagine 500 kids showing up at home tonight saying to mom and dad a week before Christmas, "We're going to make cookies." But I still feel that it's your presence, not presence, that counts. And I believe you get one chance to make a memory for a child. So get out the flour and the rolling pin and the butter and the sugar and it's all about, I'm still convinced that years later, very few people can remember what they got under a tree, but they can remember the time they spent with their families. So with this awful COVID coming back, if it is coming back again, get outside, go for a walk in the snow, make a snowman, just make memories for your children. And we have to have some hope for the future. And I absolutely believe that it's the time you will spend with your family this Christmas. That is what you will treasure the most.
That's a beautiful message, Bruce. And I'm getting a little feedback here, but hopefully it goes away. That's a beautiful message. And I think quite often we've been in our lives so busy. And I think that's one of the things that COVID has done. It's slowed us down, it's kept us closer to home, and perhaps given us an appreciation for our families and friends and things that we can't always do that we used to do. But it hasn't all been a bad thing if one is to find the silver lining inside of this experience, that we are appreciating when we have time with family and when we can do these things. And so thank you so much for that reminder. It's I think a lot of people are going to be taking you up on that.
Well, the other thing I'd like to tell you, talk about writing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I wrote my manuscript for book number one. Two publishers turned me down. Finally, I found someone who said, "We'd love to do this. You're a good storyteller. We like your ability to market. You're just a terrible writer, that's all." So someone took my editors, took my lump of coal, and they polished it into something very beautiful. So I would say to anybody who wants to write, first of all, do it, and then stay with what you know best, and surround yourself with the people who are good at the things that you're no good at. And you have to trust your editor. You have to trust that it'll all work out. And I hope you enjoy sitting signing books as much as I do.
Well, I think you enjoy meeting people. I don't think you could be doing what you're doing without a love of people and a genuine joy to give, and to give deeply from your heart. So when you began the process and you took on Santa Claus, that obviously wouldn't have been where you were at that time. And as it evolved, how was that for you? Did you expect this to be a lifelong mission for yourself? We're talking over 40 years.
I don't know what I expected. All I knew was that I had a determined aunt. And then when I did go into the church that year, the minister sat and asked the children, did they have their letter written to Santa yet? And one little boy said, "No, I wrote my letter to Santa last year and he didn't bring me what I wanted, so I'm going to go straight to God this year." And I just loved the humor of the children. And then when I started to get into the hospital and started to see children there, my daughter here is a pediatric cardiologist, and my daughter says that a child in pain is something that is difficult because in many cases the child didn't do anything to cause their pain. It isn't obesity or over drinking or smoking or whatever. I mean, the child did nothing to cause their pain. Another thing that I realize when I'm in the John Howard Society and one of the parents is in jail, the child didn't make that decision. So when a child says, Santa, can you let my daddy out of jail for Christmas? These are the moments for me that are very special. So it was my connection to the children that keeps me going. And we're a week away. Between now and Christmas Eve, I will meet two children that are terminal, and they will not be alive next Christmas. So Santa will meet them. Santa will give them. Santa starts out every year. I have 48 teddy bears. They all have their own little scarves and their own little masks. Santa's own Teddy 2021. And I will give away 48 of these in the next couple of days. And they're very special teddy bears.
And Bruce, why do you, I mean, children think so much of Santa as bringing gifts and so on, but you seem to make a different connection with them. In almost, I don't know, it's surreal, but how do you think that they view Santa after they have that connection with you and they talk to you? Does it change at all, do you feel?
Well, it's certainly magic in that I can't say enough about Mrs. Claus. So while it is true that Santa and I have been friends for 43 years, I have a bride who's put up with me for 53 years, and she has been part of my journey. So when we do the Santa Claus parade, Santa's in his sleigh, and there's a wonderful assistant out on the road, and the wonderful assistant in the blue coat is saying, and Santa can hear, the little girl in the red sweater is Catherine. And then Santa from the top of the sleigh turns and says, "Hello, Catherine Taylor. Merry Christmas." So it's all about magic. And one year was really sweet. A lady came in, and I'll tell you this story quickly. A lady came in and she had a little pin. And she said, "Can you put this pin in your hat? It's very important." So I did that, and I asked her why, and she said, because my son has come home and said Santa's a fake. So what we did was, I said, "Where are you going to be on the parade?" So she said they were going to be down on Duckworth Street. I got the kids' names, and then Santa called down from the sleigh and said, "Look, Santa's got your pin. Hello, David. Hello, Billy. Hello, Jacob. Yes, we got your pin." And it's really sweet when you look down and you see the little kid's chin drop, and you see tears coming from mother's eyes. So you have to keep the magic. And I couldn't do what I do without Mrs. Claus, who snuck into the room.
Yes. She's welcome to come on the show if she'd like to say hello. But it is true. You know, behind every good Santa, there's a good Mrs. Claus. I really feel that. And thank you both for all the wonderful work you've been doing. I'm just going to show this picture again here. This is a Santa convention, I believe. Is it, Bruce? So would these be the most wonderful Santas in the world here?
Well, that one was in Denver, Colorado, and so that's an international conference. There were 600 colleagues there from all over the world, and yes, they get together. And that was the one where they asked me to come. I was the keynote speaker at that convention. But yes, we get together. The protocols of Santa have changed dramatically. So, for example, you do training classes at these. You learn how to say Merry Christmas in American Sign Language. You learn about the protocols of never have photographs taken until you can see both of Santa's hands. There's no children sitting on Santa's knee anymore. So the protocols and the proper way for Santa to behave, that changes with society. And that's part of the reason that we all get together.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense. I want to go back to how we do this in sign language. Let's teach everyone. We have a wonderful opportunity to do that. Show us how to say.
As soon as you're finished.
You roll your hands forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then you make the letter C. Right. So you're doing Merry Christmas.
Christmas. Okay, everyone out there, now you know how to do this in American Sign Language, thanks to Bruce.
Merry
Thank
Christmas in ASL. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to be
I,
able to
I,
do.
I taught 500 children to do that this morning.
Did you? Yeah. Well, maybe we'll teach a whole other audience here through the show. We reach a number of people throughout Newfoundland and also throughout the world on our platform. So we'll try to spread the word on how to do that. Um, so so from when you started, and tell me a little more about the Santa Hall of Fame, what that meant to you, and how did you end up in the Santa Claus Hall of Fame?
The Santa Claus Hall of Fame was a complete surprise. I actually got a call one night from the Hall of Fame to say that I'd been nominated and then selected. Now, the honest truth is, I didn't even know that it existed. But where I did get a surprise was when I started to learn that I would be joining the Hall of Fame. And then there was another part of all of this when we talked about the ministry of Nicholas. Then I got down on my knees, and they had a big sword, and I was knighted as a knight of St. Nicholas. And but when you look at the people in the Santa Claus Hall of Fame, and when you look at the American actor Mickey Rooney, when you look at Haddon Sandblom, I mean, over Christmas you're going to turn on your TV and you're going to see an old black and white movie, and that's Edmund Gwynn. And when you look at the original movie about Miracle on 42nd Street, Edmund Gwynn is there. Haddon Sandblom is the one who did the Coca-Cola Santa. So I mean, I'm in an amazing group. I don't deserve to be there. But these are the world's leading Santas. And there's only 24 in the world that are in the Hall of Fame.
Amazing. Well, I do think you do deserve to be there, but I appreciate your humbleness for sure. When you were writing the book, you told me a couple of very interesting stories, and I'd like you to at least share one of them about how you were getting permissions to use certain things in the books and a few roadblocks you came across.
Well, I'd say to any budding author, there are going to be roadblocks. And there's a thing about trademarks, and be awfully careful of trademarks, because once you take a name and use it, then you have to make sure. So you'll learn about 91 years and anything older than 91 years. So 91 years is considered to be in the public domain. So when you quote from A Night Before Christmas and All Through the House, Clement Moore, you can do that. You cannot say one word about Rudolph. Rudolph is trademarked in New York, and you can get yourself in a lot of trouble if you make any reference to Rudolph in a book without their permission.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed, as I was writing the book, Rudolph is in my book. The Coca-Cola Santa is in my book. And I did enjoy, as I was writing the book, as I was writing the one you were holding, there's a mother who was holding a baby who is dying, and she's singing, "For one so small you seem so strong, my arms will keep you safe and warm. This bond between us cannot be broken. I will be here, don't you cry." And that is the theme from You'll Be in My Heart from the movie Tarzan. It was written by Phil Collins. So I decided I wanted to put that in the book. I sent the chapter down to Disney. I said, well, can I do this? They wrote me back and said, absolutely not. So then I thought, well, why don't we write Phil Collins? So we sent a letter to England. We got a beautiful letter back from Phil Collins to say, I would be thrilled if you would put my words in your book. So I would say to any author, you're going to run into roadblocks. Don't give up. If you are determined to do it, you will find a way.
I have no doubt. And Phil Collins definitely went to the top of my list on this one, that he did take the time to respond and to make that possible for you. That's very nice, because many times we think of people like Phil Collins as being unreachable, but indeed they are not. And you've proven that. Or it was the magic of Santa.
Well, the one other quick story, because I know you were watching the time. The phone rang one night. The voice said, my name is Michael Marks. My father was Johnny Marks. My father wrote Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the song. And Michael Marks gave me permission because he said, you're the first one who figured out that Rudolph wasn't handicapped. Rudolph wasn't disabled. He was a little reindeer with a red nose. And in every school and in every classroom, there's a child that's different. and all they want is to be loved and appreciated for who they are. So they gave me permission in New York to put Rudolph in the book.
Hmm. Now, this must have taken a fair bit of work on your part to get through all of this. From when you started the book, and it was, I'm holding it in my hands. Did it, was it a year, less, more?
I don't know. There's another one in my head now. I've learned in the last couple of years, and your readers must be interested in this. All 9 of the reindeer, Dasher, Comet, Vixen, Cupid, all of the reindeer are female. All of them. There are no male reindeer. So I'm writing a new book now all about the 9 female reindeer.
I'm liking it. I'm thinking that this is going to be a popular book. And the way a couple of their names had evolved, I read the books that my guests bring to me, and I thoroughly enjoyed your book, and certainly the heartstrings. At times, I know how difficult it must be for the role that you play for children and elderly who are not well and who are at the end of life, and it takes someone special, Bruce, and it takes a special touch to do that. Do you find it hard to continue with that, or are you quite able to handle it?
I, I'll do it this way. I was with Dr. Templeton one night, my daughter Christina. So we get to the door in pediatric cardiology. She said, "You have to go through the door alone, Santa. The baby's burned 90% of her body." So I put my head down and I had a little chat with St. Nicholas. And I said, "Nicholas, go and prepare the way for me that I will not be alone." So I find myself now in very difficult times. I have a chat with St. Nicholas, and then Santa and St. Nicholas can do some amazing things together.
Beautiful. Well, I think everyone wants to hear this show end with a greeting from Santa. Do you think you could accommodate us?
Merry Christmas. Oh, jingle bells.
I'd try to emulate that. Ho, 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 ho. You have it down just right.
Merry Christmas.
I want to thank you so much. I know this is a busy season for you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and talk about your adventures and your writing. Have a wonderful Christmas to you and Mrs. Claus.
Thank you.